Hi, in this video I'm going to take a look at PostGIS, and this is what QGIS initially was made for. So PostGIS, it's a spatial extension to postgresql, which is an open source database. And this is at least one of the main reasons that QGIS was initially created, because there were not very good viewers of PostGIS data. So that is one of the main reasons why QGIS was initially created, but that is a completely different story. In this video, I'm going to set up a PostGIS server from the beginning, and I'm going to use a virtual Linux server. And if you have a Windows or a Mac, you can do the same, as long as you install Oracle VirtualBox in your system. And you could also do this on a physical hardware, but I'm doing it in a virtual machine, and you can do that as well. You could also install it natively on your client. And if you are using Linux, you can more or less use the same instructions as I am showing you here. If you are using Windows or Mac, you're on your own. I don't use either of those, so I couldn't show you how to do it even if I wanted to. So I'm a Linux guy. So let's get started. First of all, we need a virtual machine, and I'm just going to create a virtual machine called PostGIS Virt. It should be a Linux, and I'm basing mine on Ubuntu, 64-bit. So next, I have a lot of RAM, so I can give mine 8 gigs. It will run on a lot less, so you give it what you can. I create a new virtual drive, accept all the defaults, dynamically allocated, and 10 gigs is enough, but I have room to spare, so I go up to 30 or something. That's it. And now I need to add some settings to it. First of all, the system. I have a lot of CPU cores, so I can give it a few extra, and you can give it as many as you can spare, but it will run on just one CPU core. Screen will not be important. Storage, need to add a disk image, and I've downloaded Ubuntu 18.04 server for this, and you choose the virtual file here, and it's an ISO file, or an ISO file like that. And I also usually check this box to make it possible for the client or the virtual system to use the host's caching capabilities. That I think it speeds up the process some. And the last thing is network. I'm putting it at a bridged network, and that is it. Then all I have to do is to press start. Let's drag it in here. And I should also mention that when I do this, there are some steps that take a little bit of extra time. So when that happens, the video, so you don't have to wait if you are not doing this at the same time as I do. But it will give you a chance to catch up. So, preferred language, English is fine. I have a Swedish keyboard, so I need to change to Swedish. Oops, Swedish. Install Ubuntu. You could change it to a fixed IP address. That is probably a good idea if this is a more permanent solution. But I'm fine with DHCP for testing purposes. I don't have a proxy. That's fine. Use the entire disk. Yes. Done. Continue. I need to give it a name. A server name. Username. Password. And that's it. I could add postgresql here, but I don't have to. So let's see what happens. Yeah, I might pause it here. No? It seems to be running fine. Installation of Linux is usually really fast. So, at least compared to other operating systems. And this time there will be no graphical user interface with desktop applications to install or anything like that. So this will probably be pretty quick. I'm guessing that's more or less it. Let's see. Yep, reboot now. What did I take? 2 minutes? Remove media and press enter. And we're in. That's it. I need to do some stuff. And I have a script for that. Or I will do it manually, everything, but I have written down what to do. So the first step, install Ubuntu server. That's done. Now we need to update all packages. So first we need to log in. Like that. And then we need to update the packages. And a password. And this will probably take some time, so now I will probably pause the video, at least for a little while in order for all this to finish installing. And we're just about done. It took some minutes, just enough time for me to get some coffee, and we can continue. So we have updated the packages, and now it's time to install PostGIS. Sudo apt install PostGIS, and it wants us to press confirm it yes. If you are not doing it exactly like this, or depending on which updates are being implemented when you do this, you may have to fix some broken or missing packages. It's not a big deal, and a possible solution could also be just restart the server and try again. But if you need to fix missing packages, this is one of the commands that you could use. For me, it seems that it is working fine. So we're just waiting for PostGres server and the PostGIS extensions to be installed with all dependencies. And it would just take a minute or two. So I don't think I'm going to turn it off. There we go. Oh, it's done. Next, it's time to set the system password for the Postgres user. The installation has created the Postgres user in the operating system. There's also a Postgres user in the postgresql database. But first we need to set the password for the system user. And we do that with the command sudo passwd postgres. And we type in a new password. And the password was updated successfully. Great. Now we need to create a database. For PostGIS to work, it needs a database to enable. The PostGIS extension enables a database to be storing spatial data. And you really shouldn't do that in the default database. So for this, you should create a new database. And that is done like this, sudo -u, that is, run this command with another username. And we are using the newly changed password for the postgres user. And the command is createdb. And I'm naming my database Geodata. You can name it anything. As long as it doesn't have any weird characters. And we should get a message or not. No message is also a good message. Then we can connect to it, and we do that also as the Postgres user. So sudo user postgres, and connect, we do that with the psql command. And we need to connect to a database, otherwise it will be the default one, Geodata. And now we see that we are connected to the Geodata database, because it says so. We also see that we have... never mind. The next step is to set the Postgres database user password. And that is with a backslash password Postgres. So it's not the exact same command as we did in the system password change. And we can set a completely different password here. I screwed up. Like that. So let's see what's next. Number 8. There is probably a command you can use to effectuate these changes, but the easiest way is to log out of the database and log in again. And logging out or quitting from PSQL is \q. And then just up arrow to have the most recent command. And we are back in. Now I need to create the PostGIS extension. And that is the command create extension PostGIS semicolon, like that. If you don't use the semicolon, it will not start running or executing the command. So make sure you add the semicolon at the end. Here we go. That's done. And now we can check what version of PostGIS we are running. Select PostGIS version and parenthesis and semicolon. So I'm running PostGIS version 2.4. Okay, we can exit that, quit. Now we need to do some editing. And there are some config files. And I will do this in the Linux system and show you where to find them. If you are doing this installation on Mac or Windows, you may need to search a little for the files. But it will be the same changes in the configuration. So in Linux, I use the nano program to edit the files. So sudo nano, and the files are in etc postgresql, and this is PostgreSQL 10. It's a main folder, and in that folder we have a few files, all more or less config files. The first one I want to change is the postgresql conf. PostgresqL conf. And enter. Navigating in this arrows, and I look for the row listen addresses. And I remove the comment character, the hashtag symbol, and I remove the localhost text. Replace that with a star. That means that the server will listen to any IP address that calls it. If you want to add some security to your system, you can limit which IP addresses the server will listen to for commands. but this is fine. I need to save the file, Control O, and I need to exit, Control X. Then the next file, the next file I want to edit is the PGHBA config file, PGHBA conf. And here I'm looking for IP version 4 settings, and I need to add a row. So I type the same as is above, host, all, and then I need to add the address space for the server and the clients, and that's unique for your system. For me, I have a local IP address that is 192.168.0, and the default gateway is 1. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you tell the system what address space you are using. And if I type in 24, that means it will use all addresses between 1 and 255. And we should add MD5 as well. Okay, save, Control O, exit, Control X. That's it. The one of the last steps with the server is to restart the PostgresQL server. And we do that with this command. Sudo service PostgresQL restart. That's it. To connect, I need to find my server's IP address. And there's a command for that. ifconfig. And here I can see that my server has the address 192.168.035. So, time for QGIS. And in the browser, I look for PostGIS, right-click and select New Connection. Here I can give it a name. PostGIS. And the host is the server IP address, 35. Port is the default database. My database was named Geodata. And I use a basic authentication. Postgres. I store the name. And I store the password. There are different ways to make this more secure, but for testing purposes, this is fine. If you want to be able to save project files in the database, you need to check this box. And then you can test the connection. Yep, worked. Okay. Yeah, you get a warning that you are saving passwords and so on. For me, right now, it's not a problem. There we go. Virtual PostGIS database. There is a public scheme in it. I usually don't use that. So the first thing I do is to create a new scheme. We call this test. So I have a test scheme, and now we can add data to it. And in order to add some data, type, world. I have some vector data in a layer. And this I want to put into my database. So I go to Database, DB Manager. Oh, it's big. we have the virtual database and the test scheme, and then you can rename it if you want to. Has nothing in it. Import layer of file, and I want to import my world map, and to accept most of the defaults, just update options. You get a name. I don't think it likes blank signs, so world map. It has a lot of these things already, so I think I'm good to go. Done. So now I can create a new project, go to my PostGIS database and add the map. Now I can style it any way I like. Let's just make something outrageous. I can store that style. There we go. Symbology, styling, save as default. Data source database. And if we create something new and add it again, it's stored in the database. I can also save the project, save to postgresql, and we select the connection, what scheme, put it in a test, and we call this test project. Okay. Discard. And in the database, let's see if we update, we now have a project file. So I can add the project, and it will use the layers from the database. Okay, so if you followed along, you now have a PostGIS database that you can use for anything, more or less, in QGIS. There are a lot more you can do to, for instance, make the database more secure. You can create users and groups. And to do that, it's not practical to do that through QGIS. And it's not really super simple to do it through the terminal on the server. But there are interfaces or software that you can use as a front end for it. So for instance, there is this program called Admin, and there are two versions. Admin 3, that is it's a standalone application, and Admin 4, that is it's a browser based. So let's see if I can connect to the database. I have my Geodata database. I get statistics on it. I can create schemes. I can add tables. I can create logging groups, users, and set ownership, and do a lot of things through this interface. You may also want to add extra capabilities for the PostGIS server. I'm not completely sure that it comes with raster support as default, but that is just a matter of running SQL scripts on the server if you need to enable that. But for now, I think it's enough. The video is reasonably long, so I think that's it. You now should have a personal PostGIS server, or if you installed it on a dedicated machine, you could use it for a group of users, and you can share it and not worry about locking files and so on. That is normal for a file-based storage system like shapefiles or personal geodatabases. Even GeoPackage have some problems like that. So that's it. See you next time.